Okay, today we're going to have somebody most of us, I guess all of us know, Jim Burklo, who is the Senior Associate Dean of Religious Life at USC.
Presently.
He told, I saw him the other day and he told me that he plans to retire at the end of September.
Really?
And
Yeah.
maybe he'll tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But we're here today, and he's going to talk about an idea that he's been working on, and I think he's probably thinking about writing a book about it, called Nurturing Natural Spirituality. And it's a topic that he said he's been getting more and more interested in, and so I think it would be a great thing for him to talk to us. So, Jim?
Kevin, is it being recorded?
Yes.
All good.
Okay.
Thank you, Rich. Hello. Hi, Kevin. It all work? Yeah. Oh, I see. You're flipping the screen. Righto. Thank you. Yeah. Great. Could shift it over just a little bit, maybe, and then I can see the guys on the right-hand side. Yeah. There you go. I can see Rich now. Yay. Thank you. Perfect. See you, Rich. All right. Well, lovely to be back with you. Hello, more coming in. Yay. Great to be back online and in person. Hybrid as usual lately. Yes, my announcement is I'm retiring from USC as of 2nd of September. It's been a great run, been there 14 years. I've loved it, but I'm on to new stuff. Really, it's about kind of settling down in Ojai where we live. I've been going back and forth between a little apartment in the student ghetto at USC, which has been really interesting. You know, it's all good except, you know, like at 2 a.m. when they decide to crank up the music. You know, like, okay, put in the earplugs and hope for the best. Anyway, it actually has been pretty fun, but it's time. That's all. So I'm doing it, and what I'm working into is actually 2 projects I'll share with you. One of them is I'm leading an effort to create a national network of progressive Christian campus ministries. There are networks like that all over the country in different campuses for the evangelicals. So you have InterVarsity, you have Campus Crusade for Christ, et cetera, that are everywhere. But there's no equivalent network with a standardized brand, if you will, identifiable brand for progressive Christian students. So I'm creating that. My partner in this is Brian McLaren. You might have heard of him. He's a notable ex-evangelical leader, writer, terrific guy. He's cared about this question for a lot of years. And so the 2 of us have teamed up. And now Progressive Christians Uniting, that organization, I'm on the board of that. We've taken this on as our main project. So PCU is now the sponsor of this effort to create this network, and it's exciting. Very fun to work on this. So keep you posted on that. The other project I'm working on is the one I wanted to share a bit with you about right now. It's called Souljourning, Souljourning. And that's the title I've given it. And I've got a website, souljourning.org, for it.
Okay.
What I'm working on is creating a network and a resource base for families, primarily for parents of young people, 0 to 21, to nurture the natural spirituality of kids. I've talked a little bit about this in the past, I think, with y'all, about how there's an emerging science going on right now around the brain and behavioral correlates of spiritual development. We know a lot more about the neural networks, if you will, related to spiritual experience and the development of spiritual experience through the life cycle. The textbook on this, 2 of them actually, one of them, both by Dr. Lisa Miller. She's the author of The Spiritual Child, which is an overview of the research into the natural spirituality and its development. That's several years old now as a book. The new book she's put out is called The Awakened Brain, and it's a further expansion of the research on this subject. Bottom line of the research is spirituality is its own developmental process. So you have the development of personality in young people, and there are measurements of that. It turns out that spirituality is a distinctly marked developmental pathway. And we get that from behavioral research, but the brain science is also getting very robust around the what we would call the phenomenology of religion, right? So there's the theology, right? That's all the doctrines and all the elaborate writings and practices of religion. Then there's the experiential part. That's phenomenology. What we experience, what we feel, what we sense. That's and the aspects of that are associated with spirituality. Now we have some markers and pathways that we found in the brain through emerging fMRI research. We know now what the pathway is, the neural pathway of the experience of transcendence or awe or wonder, which is fundamental to the phenomenology of all the world's religions. I think I've shared with you before, Paul McLaughlin is a professor at Otterbein College in Ohio. Wonderful man. I heard him give a lecture years ago for the Jesus seminar up in Santa Rosa. It was wonderful. And he says, have you noticed that all the teachers and figures of the world's religions, all their names all include the sound awe? Buddha, Yahweh, Allah, Muhammad, Watanka, Shiva, Krishna, Yeshua, Jesus, right? And so on. Jehovah, awe, wonder, transcendent experience. So no news for those of us who are practitioners of Christianity that this would be the case, but now we've got brain science to back it up and to establish that there's a scientific imperative for the nurture of natural spirituality. This is another of Lisa's findings, is that if you nurture natural spirituality and its development, you get good life outcomes. And if you don't get such good life, you get worse life outcomes. We have behavioral science on that now that we didn't have before, just in these recent years. So again, this adds up to an imperative. Now, again, those of us who care about spirituality, those of us in the room here have been at it, we care. We are serious about this. But now we've got science that gives an imperative to non-religious parents, SBNRs, if you will, spiritual but not religious folks, and others, now have a scientific-based reason to pursue this and to take seriously the necessity of nurturing the natural spirituality and the development of that in their children. That's the news. That's what's new and different. When Varun, Sony, and I, or my boss, the dean of religious and spiritual life at USC, when we read Lisa's book a few years ago, we looked at each other and we go, oh, well, we used to think that our office was where you go if religion is your jam, right? At USC and other campuses, offices like ours. Now, having read this book, it is clear that our job is to nurture the natural spirituality of all 48,000 students at USC, because they're all going through this developmental process. Our job is to encourage that and nurture that. Those are new marching orders for offices like ours.
What's the name of the book?
Please, yes, Jim.
What is the name of the book?
It's called The Spiritual Child. The Spiritual Child by Lisa Miller. She heads up the Brain and Spirituality Research Institute at Columbia University. And then her second book that just came out, The Awakened Brain.
Lisa Miller.
Lisa Miller, Dr. Lisa Miller, psychologist, a professor at Columbia, and all about developmental spirituality. We had her come out to campus not too long ago and work with us. We are kind of the test case for the country at USC for something that she wants to institute called Awakened Campus. So the idea is to put these findings into practical programming at universities around the country. So we're tune in. We're gonna develop this and do this at USC. Our focus is going to be on training staff people who are student facing, right? Student affairs, residential life, residential assistants, also student club leaders, students who lead the clubs. We have 1,000 student clubs on campus, crazy. So our goal is to train everybody who faces students at USC in what you and I might call the arts of chaplaincy, right? The skills of how to nurture the spirituality of our students, all of our students. Obviously, we'll be doing this in non-religious terms, but certainly in terms that are compatible with all the world's faiths. So that's our call to action from this research at USC. Meanwhile, for years, I've been getting phone calls and emails from parents around the country who say, oh, Jim, now I've got kids and I'm not a churchy person, but I know this stuff matters. What do I do? How do I raise my kids with spirituality, but maybe not with a specific religion? So I've had dozens of, lots of folks have contacted me with that question. And that's what has motivated me to get busy with this project. So what I'm working on is a suite of resources that non-religious people can use, but also that progressive Christians and others can use, compatible and interlocking with our faith tradition, to nurture the natural spirituality of children through their development. Super interesting stuff to work with. So I thought I'd share a bit about what I'm doing and some of the topics here, because I think it affects, I'm a grandparent. Boy, is it fun lately. My daughter has a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old boys, and I'm getting to practice this stuff with these fellas who are adorable little people, by the way. So I'm it's up in my face, this developmental process, hanging out with my grandkids. I've also got 9-year-old and 15-year-old granddaughters, and that journey continues with them too. But now, as I think in a more concentrated way about this topic while being part of my grandsons' lives, it's much more up in my face and top of mind for me. So some of the ways that we can nurture the natural spirituality, and natural, this is a natural process. It's universal. Obviously, there are differences between kids about how they experience it and the degrees to which they experience or develop in different areas of spirituality. But the process as a whole is universal. So I'm writing a book, kind of a habit of mine. I can't stop myself from writing books. Anyway, I'm at it again. This one's called Souljourning, and it's going to be an overview of this material, kind of an intro to it, then backed up with the website and the other resources that we're working on. Oh, another thing going on to share with you that I'll give you further reports in the future is that also with Brian McLaren, I'm part of a team, national group. You might have heard of Focus on the Family. So that's the fundamentalist right wing suite of resources for parents to raise your children as fundamentalist right wing Christians. It's very much tied into the culture wars agenda. It's fundamentalist Christianity, but it's a big suite of resources, a big world of resources that any parent can access. Very powerful resource and ubiquitous in fundamentalist Christian world. Parents use it all the time, and it has many different pieces and aspects and types of resources. There is no progressive Christian equivalent to that. So Brian has convened a group to create that. And it's a really amazing group, mostly of ex-evangelical people who are in the world of resources for kids. So children's book writers, curriculum writers, Christian educators, some of them with pretty high profiles who are now gathering together. I'm part of this too, gathering together to pool our resources and create a common structure to offer to families so that they have one place to kind of one-stop shopping, right? You go to this resource environment to get all sorts of materials that have progressive theological and social values content for Christians, right? People want to raise their children as progressive children, Christians. Big deal. It's super interesting. So I'll keep you posted on that as it emerges. It's exciting. So some of the things that we want to I'm focusing on in the website and in the book, I'll share with you now. Some practical stuff too, stuff you can do right with your grandkids, your kids, etc. Stuff you can do in church with kids. The whole thing that I'm building my resource around, it's all based on mindfulness practice, and we've done that together in this group. On mindfulness, I've introduced that to you, or how we do it at USC, the program we started, mindful.usc.edu. I'm one of the teachers for that still. I'll probably stay on as a teacher for mindfulness in my retirement in the USC program. So all of this, all of the Souljourning resources are based on mindfulness as kind of the core of it all, right? And mindfulness is about attention. Yes, mindfulness equals attention. And attention is love. We talked about that in this group too. Simone Weil, the philosopher theologian, said that prayer is mindfulness. Or excuse me, prayer consists of attention, she said. So the cultivation of attention is critical for parents, grandparents, and kids, right? I think it was William James that said something to the effect that the cultivation of attention is the crown jewel of all education. If you can entrain young people to pay attention, deep attention, that's gold. That's the beginning of and the basis of all effective education. It's gold. So souljourning with attention and guiding our young people to be attentive in a deep way. And again, this is a certain kind of attention. This is open-minded attention. This is agape love attention, unconditional attention, right? One of the chapters in my book so far is about looking, right? Are we looking to find something, or are we just looking, right? Just looking. one of the chapters that I devote to here is about Studia Divina. Remember we've done Lectio Divina together in this group. I think I've shared that with you. That's the old. How many of you are familiar with Lectio Divina? Most of you? Yeah, I think we did it here. It's an old, ancient, medieval onwards practice where you read a piece of scripture repeatedly out loud, lectio. Then you have meditatio, where you just sit with that passage from scripture without imputing any meaning or preconception about it. Let go of all that and just sit with it. Just pay attention, attend to the passage itself as it presents to you without prior interpretation, and meditatio, meditation. Then oratio, the spoken prayer, and then contemplatio, which is sort of the second derivative of meditatio. Contemplatio is where we open up our attention to all that presents from within, which at some point in contemplatio, ideally we get to a point where we're aware that the core of our being is the attention itself, the love itself, the love who is God. So we identify with God, experience God directly in contemplatio. So one of my chapters is about Studia Divina. And what that is where you take a problem that you're dealing with in school, a math problem or a physics problem or a biology problem or any kind of problem or gnarly thing that you're dealing with as a kid studying or a young person studying. And that's your lectio, right? Use that as your lectio. Instead of a Bible passage, use a math problem. Now, the thing is, just as in lectio, you're not trying to solve the problem. You're trying to look at the problem. Just look, not look for anything there, but just look, right? Just looking. Like you go to the store, right? And you're looking around and the clerk comes up, "Can I help you?" And you say, no, I'm just looking, right? That kind of looking, right? You're not looking for something, you're just looking. So this is Studia Divina. You just look at your problem. I think I might have shared with you in the past the wisdom of George Polya, who was a mathematician focused on multidimensional geometry. He's the guy that came up with multidimensional geometry, which then became critical for quantum mechanics. Important figure in mathematics. I actually got to meet the old guy when he was, he must have been 90 years old when I met him at Stanford. Charming old Hungarian guy, delightful. Anyway, Polya wrote a book called How to Solve It, which is a classic of mathematical education. And basically, he would never call himself a contemplative person. I don't think he would have described himself that way. But in fact, that's what the book is about. Because he says the trouble with math education is we give problems to kids and then immediately they want to solve them. He says, no. That's not the way to approach mathematics. He says, you should look at the unknown. Just look, right? Don't try to solve the problem. Just contemplate the problem for a while. Just be with it. Admire the problem. What a cool idea, huh? To admire the problem. Like, wow, that's something, that problem. That's amazing. That's a problem, man. That's a good one, Just look. And then later, out of that looking, you begin to make connections and associations with other problems that have been solved, and you start putting it together. Right? So Studia Divina is building on Polya's idea. and also on this ancient Christian practice of looking at scripture without preconceptions, not trying to figure it out. Oh, this means this, oh, no, let go of that, and Lectio Divina. So Studia Divina is this faith-based, spiritually based approach to school studies. Simone Weil wrote a beautiful essay, I might have shared this with you before, about the spirituality of school studies, saying that her brother was a famous, also deep into geometry, a famous mathematician in his own right. She says, so you're studying geometry. Maybe you're no good at it, but you study diligently. You really pay attention in a deep way to your studies. She says, you may, not do well in geometry class, but the attention that you cultivated in the class translates into prayer, because prayer is attention, right? So your school studies build up your prayer muscle, right? Build up your spirituality. They nurture your natural spirituality. If you approach your school studies as the goal to be the cultivation of attention, of deep attention. So that's one of my chapters. That's a whole thing I'm building out in these resources. The cultivation of attention in young people. And how do you do that with your kids and grandkids? You pay attention to them, right? You give them the gift of attention. You just look at them. You're not looking for something in your grandkids. You're just looking at them, kids with grandkids. Just looking to see what emerges from your attention that you pay to them. Let them be what they are as they are now, not what you want them to be or not what you would like to see in them, but what you see now as they are on their terms. Give young people that kind of attention, and then they learn to give that kind of attention to everybody and everything else. So critical to this whole work of nurturing natural spirituality. Related to that, the nurture of listening, again, practicing listening with our kids and our grandkids, listening to them with open ears, not listening for, but listening to what they have to say, asking questions. So I have a whole unit on that and resources about great questions to ask at the family dinner table, open-ended questions that stimulate deeper conversation. Another thing I might have introduced to you in the past that's part of this is campfires as a technique. Did we do this before? I cannot remember.
You told us about it.
I might have told you about it. I'll just show it to you again here. Can I do screen share?
Yeah.
Yeah, here I am. I see it. I'm good. Oh, host disabled. All right. No biggie. But what this is something we do on campus through our office. We have a program called Belonging. We've been teaching students how to be friends. Sounds crazy, but in fact, they need help with that. Got it? Okay, thank you. So one thing we do with them is this, campfires. So you take your phone or your computer or whatever you have with you, you put it to this campfire video, put that on the screen, put that in the middle of the table or the room with all your phones playing campfire videos at the same time, crackle, 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 flames burning. And then what you've done is you've repurposed the phone so that it's not going to get in the way of face-to-face conversation. And you've turned it into a device that facilitates face-to-face conversation. And then you sit around the campfire, the virtual campfire, with all your devices playing the fire. And you start asking questions, right? And then you have deep conversation. The nice thing about campfires is that a campfire is something you can stare at during periods of dead air in the conversation. It encourages dead air. Dead air, I mean, quiet, like not responding verbally right away to something somebody else has said. So that you can stare at the campfire, and that occupies the dead air in a beautiful way to encourage deeper reflection on the questions and on the responses. So try it. It's cool. It works. As a, oops, we got fire burning back there. Excuse me. There I am. Got out of it.
Getting kind of warm in there.
Oh yeah, I'm burning up over here. But yeah, doing a campfire with the family, try it out as a technique to encourage deeper connection, asking questions, having a deeper kind of conversation. Another section that I'm working on is on enchantment. Yes. How to encourage enchantment of your children. I wrote about this in my blog recently. I have a young friend who, by the way, now that I think of it, he would be such a fantastic speaker for your adult forum. Oh golly, have I not turned you on to him yet? His name is Nate Gracer, Graeser. Get back to you on that. Nate is fantastic. Okay. He was one of my students when I was teaching public policy at the social work school. He's a military chaplain, Army Reserve chaplain, who's done active duty in Kosovo and some other hot spots in the world. And he works with National Guard soldiers, almost all of whom are from low income and mostly troubled backgrounds. And he was so shocked at the emotional, physical, and mental condition of his soldiers that he signed himself up to go to social work school. He says, I got to get some skills to be able to be useful to these guys. So he's gone on to get his doctorate in social work. And now he's a real leader in work with veterans in Southern California. He's also working on ways to reform the military chaplaincy, which, to suffice to say, is a mess. It's a completely underutilized resource in the military, with a lot of very poorly educated and folks, almost all of whom are fundamentalist Christians. So there's just a ton of work that needs to be done to improve the chaplaincy core. But Nate is just the coolest guy, and he's got 3 little kids, he and his wife. And I was just blown away. I went to dinner with them about a month ago, and they live enchanted lives, right? You go to their house, which is in a sweet little neighborhood in Highland Park area. You would never know behind the fence what's happening in their yard and their house. You open the gate and there's a farm. They have a whole farm going on. They've got bees, they've got funky fruit, everything's funky. There's flies buzzing around and compost piles and piles of stuff and nature everywhere. It's just magic. It's magical. They have chickens cackling and running around, and the kids live in this enchanted world. And his son came up to me and he whispered. He's about 6 years old. He's whispering to me. He says, "There's something in that pile of logs over there. Something's in there. I'm gonna go." I go, "Are you gonna find out?" And I whisper to him. I go, "Are you gonna go look? Are you gonna go check it out?" He goes, "Yeah." Moves up and gets up into the pile and climbs around it. Oh, it's just magical. You know, these kids are living in this world of wonderment, right? Awe and wonder, whispering as they go off on their quests to discover what's up in their yard, right? So how do we encourage that? How do we observe that? How do we support that sense of quest, that sense of adventure, that sense of enchantment for children, and create an environment where that can happen, where that's a natural outcome of the environment that they're in. All sorts of ways to do that. Yes, ways, methods, if you will, thought out ways that parents can do and grandparents can use to encourage enchantment. Oh, baby, these guys are masters at it. Get Nate to talk to you, because he has a lot. He has a whole shtick that he does about his bees. He could give you a whole disquisition about the deeper significance of observing bees. Oh, what a guy. There's a lot of layers to him. Anyway, enchantment, that's a topic. And then another topic that I cover that's important in this whole thing is ritual, creating ritual space, and also creating rituals that a family can maintain. All sorts of ways to do that. Having a ritual kit, stuff that you have available to do ritual with the family. Altars, how to make altars. I've done this in different contexts. I'd be happy to do an altar making event at MBCC sometime. Love to, because I've done this before. Making altar ritual spaces, or little altars that can be the centerpiece of a ritual space for families. And then maintaining those altars, those sacred spaces over time. A little bit about ritual. And that is, these are some pointers that I've learned about over my career. I'll share a bit about this, then blow it open here for some conversation. Yeah. Rules of thumb for creating your own ritual in your family and anywhere else. One is space, entry into, creating a ritual space, and then creating a sense of entry into it. Go to a cathedral, and you'll always notice that there are successive layers of entry, narrowing and narrowing of entry spaces. So you have the big door and then the narrower doors. You have a sense of, you have a powerful sense of going into something special and different. Do you guys do godly play at your church? I don't know. Do you know what godly play is? Sunday school system? Nobody recognizes it. Check this out, people. You can use the godly play at home too. Godly play, can't recommend it enough for the nurture of natural spirituality of kids. It's the system we use at Mount Hollywood UCC, where I belong. Godly play is based on Carl Jung. It's like a mashup of Carl Jung and Montessori. Okay, for kids, and then turned into a Sunday school. So one modality of Jungian therapy is called sand play, where you have a tray with sand, and then you have a bunch of figurines, and the patient takes figurines and makes a diorama, and then talks about the diorama that they've made with the therapist. This is a riff off of that sand play system. So in godly play, you have little figurines that are not painted; they're just silhouettes of biblical figures, and the teacher. The kids come to the room, the godly play room, which is set up in a very special way, in a ritualistic kind of way. They come to the door of the godly playroom, and there's an adult there who says to the child, kind of whispers to them, "Are you ready to come in?" Are you ready to enter? In other words, a clear indication that this is a set aside place and time. And children respond to that like that. Just that greeting at the door totally changes their demeanor. They're like, oh, holy place. They go in, they sit down cross-legged on the floor around the sand tray. Quiet, meditative. They know something special is going on. Then the teacher acts out the Bible story with the figurines. The kids are not looking at the teacher, they're looking at the little figurines in the sand, moving around in the sand. That's how they get the Bible story. At the end of the story, the teacher asks the same question every time. I wonder, how would you finish the story? I wonder, how would you finish the story? In other words, this is a myth. This is a story. You're a part of it. It's your story. Your story. How do you find yourself in the story? How would you finish the story? How would you resolve it? What would you add to it? It's yours, right? Profound way to get that message across. Kind of fundamental to the rest of Christianity, right? The Bible stories primarily are myths, but they're myths with meaning and power, tremendous mana or energy to them, right? So yeah, check out Godly Play, and get yourself a sand tray with figurines, and create that kind of environment for kids, so they just show up and they can just go to a different place in the sand. Beautiful. Anyway, in ritual, entry is critical, right? That experience of entering into sacred space. So create entry environment, a way of entering that's special, an invitation to enter into ritual space and time. All sorts of ways to do that. Time is a big deal in rituals. Here's what I've learned from doing weddings. Very interesting for me to observe this. I've probably done 400 weddings in my career. So long story about how that's such a long story, but a lot of weddings. Anyway, what I've observed is that weddings should last roughly between 13 minutes and 55 minutes. That's my observation. If it's any shorter than about 13, 14, 15 minutes, people think, what? That wasn't a wedding. That was nothing. If it's longer than about 55 minutes or 50 minutes, then people start squirming and getting impatient. It's like, what's next, right? But between, 15 and 50 minutes, somewhere in there, people have no idea how long the ritual lasts. Time stops, right? Time stops. You're in a good, deep ritual. People have no idea about the passage of time within that time frame because they've stepped out of time, right? Ritual takes us out of time. It takes us into the realm of the eternal and the transpersonal. And so timing is a big deal in order to inculcate that experience, to invite that experience of timelessness. Repetition is a big deal in all kinds of rituals. Chanting, repeating a chant, repeating words, repeating phrases. Obviously, not too often, not too many, but repetition at some level is critical to really give a sense of ritual. Another rule of thumb in ritual is 100% participation, right? A good ritual is not a performance. It is 100% participatory. I had the great privilege of hanging out a bit with Larry Harvey. So Larry is the guy who started, the creator of the Burning Man festival. You all heard of that? where you get, tens of thousands of people running around in wild outfits or no outfits at all in the Nevada desert every fall. Big festival. And they build a huge structure that looks like a guy, a humanoid figure out of wood. And at the end of the festival, they burn it down, right? And the rule for everybody who goes to Burning Man, there's a rule, that is 100% participation. You're not here to, nobody is a spectator, everybody is a participant. Now there's lots of ways to make 100% participation happen in rituals, yes? Yeah, there are no pew potatoes, like pews in a church. Us pastors have a term called pew potatoes. Those are the people just kind of sit there in the pew, right? We don't, no pew potatoes in a good ritual. Everybody's a participant. And there's lots of ways to achieve that. In weddings, one way that I do it is that I have the couple take the rings, tie them with a little ribbon, pass them around the people who are attending, and just before they put rings are put on, they exchange the rings. Before that, you pass the rings around to everybody. Each person takes the rings and holds it in their hands and gives a blessing. Very powerful form of 100% participation. Just one example. But that's a rule of thumb for family rituals as well. Another thing that's a rule of thumb is that there should be some vagueness about the meanings of things in rituals. Back to this idea of just looking, not looking for something, but just looking. So you should leave it open-ended. I had Larry Harvey give a sermon in my church up in Marin one time. Oh, it was so great. And people always ask Larry, what does the burning man mean? So they build this huge structure and burn it down. Okay, what's that mean? And Larry's answer is, well, it means whatever you want it to mean. In other words, there's no imputed given meaning to that thing, but it's a ritual without a fixed meaning. But lots of people find it to be very meaningful, but there are a lot of different meanings that they give to it, right? Another thing that happens at Burning Man is every year they make a big temple, right, out of junk. There's a guy named David Best is an artist, and he's in charge of this. He gets a whole team together, and they'll take like scrap wood and a bunch of, drywall screws and build this giant thing out of junk, and then give it a name. So every year the temple has a different name. Simple. Temple of grief, temple of joy, temple of wisdom. That's it. That's it. A name and a structure, no more, right? And then the people of Burning Man do stuff there. They do stuff in the temple, and they start to give it meanings, their own meanings. And the meanings develop and multiply from the people, right? It's not a given meaning, it's a participatory meaning of the people who. So building in some vagueness into a ritual so that people can project their own meanings into it is critical. That makes for good ritual. Another thing is the judicious use of dead air. I mentioned that before. Silence, periods of silence or quiet. Maybe just a little bit of quiet between parts of the ritual. Building that in creates a sense of the power of ritual. Integrating the elements of a ritual. Rituals need to have some kind of cohesion. I good friends with Bart Campolo, son of Tony Campolo, who's a famous evangelist. Anyway, his son gave up on, his son was an evangelist, evangelical leader also, and then quit and became a very well-known atheist in the United States. And for a while, he was our secular humanist chaplain at USC. Anyway, he and I went to the Sunday assembly a few times. This is like atheist church, right? Check them out. They're a cool group. There's a couple of them in LA area, Sunday assemblies. So it's like church for for atheists. So he and I went to the one in Hollywood a few times, and Bart was just pleading with the people who ran it. They said he says your Sunday assembly events have they're disintegrated. Each part of your event doesn't connect with the rest. So here's Bart Campolo, former evangelical Christian, teaching these atheists how to, some of the skills that us religious people have about how to how to integrate the aspects of each part of a ritual so that it feels like a whole thing. It was the Sunday assembly before Bart advised, and they followed his advice. They got better at this. It was fun to watch. But yeah, you need to have some kind of integrity of meaning and flow in a ritual. And then creating your own ritual toolkit, having stuff that you've got available to do rituals. I have a whole kit in my office at USC. I've got sacred dirt from the Santuario de Chimayo, New Mexico. I've got olive oil. I've got water from the Jordan River. I got water from Lourdes. I've got sage bundles and other materials available always to do rituals on the spot. So having that in your home, having it on your home altar, you're ready so that you can do rituals. I'll close with a ritual that I have done in church, and it's an example of one that you can do at home, right? And it's the blessing of the driver's license. Yeah, ever thought of doing that? I mean, okay, so you're 16 years old, you get your license, that's a big deal. Why isn't there, we have weddings, we mark the moment of marriage with a big deal. In America, getting your driver's license, that's a really big deal, right? There should be a ritual around it. So I invented one, and it's something I've done in my churches. So you take, the young person who just gotten their license, they come forward, they present the license to me, the pastor. I take the license and lift it up and pronounce a blessing, something to the effect of, "We bless this license, which represents freedom and adventure for Mary here, who just got her license. We ask a blessing on her as a driver, that she be safe and protect other drivers and protect herself. And we send her forth with a blessing for adventure and joy as a new driver." And then I take the license and I pass it through a candle flame quickly a couple times. I lift it up, and then I present it back to her. And they love it. Anyway, I also do the equivalent of that for people who are giving up their licenses, right? So when the time comes when you can no longer drive, I've done that one too. We celebrate all the years of joy of driving that Margaret has had in her career as a driver. And we retire this license. And we celebrate that now other people will be indulging her in driving, and she'll be chauffeured for the rest of her days, and enjoy the view of the world from the back seat, and so on. Pass it through the flame again and return it to her. Retire the license. We need to bring ritual back into our lives, and by doing that in our families, maxing out this practice, we will help nurture the natural spirituality of our young people. Your turn. Questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes, please. In the back. Hi.
I understand your term altar, but my kids had an altar, I guess, of walls and walls of books that they shared with their kids. And Once, you never once mentioned reading books with your family, and to me, that's a wonderful way to get to share opinions and information, and I'm disappointed that you didn't bring that up.
Well, I'm disappointed I didn't either, but it's in the book. I only shared with you a little bit about what's in the book, and that'll be in the book for sure. And also ways to get the books, all right? My daughter married a Jewish man, Belarusian Jewish young man. And they are not, and then she converted to Judaism and she's deep into it. There's a whole system in the Jewish world of free books. They have a, oh, what's the name of it? I'll dig it up. But anyway, it's a program that mails you books for free for your kids that are about Judaism. And they're wonderful books. They're terrific. We need the same thing. Anyway, we got to work on that because it's a very rich resource and beautiful way, obviously, to nurture our kids' spirituality. And the books don't have to be about religion or spirituality to be spiritual, to be nurturing the soul. On the contrary. So tuning into literature that nurtures spirituality without addressing it directly, critical. That's a whole nother lecture. That up. Yes, others.
Yes, actually, I have two questions.
Please.
One is, can you give an example of the questions you asked? You mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing. And the other thing, we've heard a lot about using meditation in classes, and I guess in elementary on up through university. And I'd like to know, you gave the examples with math problems.
Right.
How does it work in, say, an English class or a history class? What is the focus of the meditation?
If you were doing it, you're saying if you did, what would be the focus of a meditation if you were dealing with like humanities or English or that kind of thing?
Yes, I mean, do you do it in the classroom or do you show students how to do it at home?
Well, the Studia Divina that I'm proposing here is in my book, and it's going to be I haven't put it on the website yet. As really more of a home or church or faith community kind of practice. But it certainly could be done in schools in other contexts. I don't know that it would be something that would catch on in a secular public school environment. But why not? It doesn't have any religious content directly, just indirectly. But yeah, I see this being used in all sorts of contexts. Yeah, difficult passage that's hard to understand from that's challenging from a textbook or literature, piece of literature, etc. That can be used just as much as a math or physics or biology problem as well. But yeah, you were asking also about questions. Yes, I have a list of questions in the book and on the website, like lists of questions. So here's one list. What's surprising about you? What are you afraid of? When was the last time you laughed so hard you cried? What are you most grateful for? What unknown or question is most interesting to you in your field of work or study, and why? What is weird about you? What keeps you up at night? How is your soul right now? What do you really wish you knew when you were younger, and what do you really want to know right now? That's just one list. Then I have a series of lists with different levels of intimacy that are implied by the questions to encourage going deeper and deeper in connection with questions. Really a great thing to develop that skill of asking good open-ended questions in our families. Others? Yes, Rich, please.
What is spirituality?
Yeah.
What is what?
Spirituality.
What is spirituality? Oh, good question. Really good question. I would say it is it starts with and ends with awe and wonder, right?
Say it again?
Awe and wonder is where it starts and ends. You know, it starts there and loops back to that, right? The essential phenomenology of religion, the heart of it is that sense of awe, and what goes with awe, right? Attention, you know, awe inspires attention. It focuses the attention. Attention, by its very nature, awe-induced attention, by its very nature, is humbling, right? It draws us out of our egos. It's an out of ego experience to be in a state of awe. So the fruit of awe is humility. Another fruit of awe is compassion, because we're so enthralled by the focus of our attention, we're enthralled by it. Then we care about it or about the person that is holding us in awe, and we respond with compassion. So it inspires compassion. It draws compassion from us. It draws out all of the spiritual virtues, the religious virtues, if you will, this experience of awe and wonder. So the cultivation of it is at the very heart of spirituality and of spiritual growth. Yes. And you know, and the growth was like, okay, I think of my grandson, Jake. I have an amazing grandson. He's 2 years old, and we connect, right, a lot. It's really an amazing connection that we have, unusually strong. And, you know, I just saw him yesterday, and there's these points in the day when we're hanging out in the park, and he just stops and he stares at stuff. He just goes like that, with his mouth hanging open. And those are the magic moments, right? And that's when, you know, my job then is to just stare with him and stare at him and stare at what he's staring at with my mouth hanging open too, if I can. It's like, oh, this moment of worshipful wonder, right? So totally natural for, you know, we see that in kids always, right? Young kids. And we got to nurture that so that we can keep that going, right? But that awe, the growth of that in spirituality is into its fruits, right? So cultivating awe and then cultivating its consequences, right? And compassion, kindness, attentiveness, all that falls out of awe, we cultivate, we lift up, we notice it. When a kid shows the fruits of awe and compassion, we celebrate the compassion, we notice it, we lift it up, we encourage it through the developmental process. So awe will translate, if the growth of that, and if that's nurtured and supported, it's going to translate into deeper and deeper forms of compassion. Compassion, it's not just about being nice to a fuzzy little bunny in front of you. Compassion that goes beyond that into caring about the structures of justice or the lack thereof in our society, right? So a more abstract, an extrapolation of that compassion. That's spiritual growth, right? Beyond that which is right in front of you into that which you can't even see. Compassion for people you don't even know, right? That's the kind of growth we're talking about. Does that make sense? Others?
Jim, I have
In the back. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Sherry, please.
not a question, really, just observation. It was interesting to me, you're talking about allowing for space and silence. And it seems to me that that's kind of an entry point for all the rest of us, all the rest of it, because our world is so constant and just one thing after another, short attention spans, people are almost uncomfortable with silence because we don't have much of it. Am I on the right track?
I think so. Yeah, that's why I shut up there for a minute. Yeah, I mean, just the cultivation of dead air, silence, of making space for some reflection, right? And parents and grandparents, we can do that for our kids and our grandkids. We can model that, where we take a pause before we look them straight in the eye after they say something, and we pause. We give a little time to sink in. Then they know they've been listened to, and they know that we're reflecting, we're letting it sink in. And that is gold, right? We model that for our kids, then they do it. And that bears fruits in spiritual growth, for sure. It's simple stuff. This is simple. None of this is rocket science, but to pay attention to how this nurtured spiritual development. That's what this exercise is all about. So,
You know what amazes me?
yes, please.
A 2-year-old whispering, because 2-year-old usually talk at the top of them.
Yeah.
A 2-year-old to be whispering is amazing.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, my grandson and I were together yesterday, and we had a little moment of whispering. We were sitting on a bench together, and he was taking leaves and tearing them up. So I just started to take a leaf and tear it up like this. And he whispered, "See, my wife and I have donkeys." So he whispers, he says, "Let's feed him to the donkeys." So we pretend that we're feeding the leaves to the donkeys. Drop them on the ground. "Here, donkeys, here you go." Whispering, magic, isn't it? Yeah, and that's a sacred moment. That's the whisper is a sign of reverence and of that something special is happening. So yeah, just to mirror that and support that. Huge. Yes, in the back, I'm so sorry.
Could you give me a definition of progressive Christianity?
Yes.
Yes.
20 words or less.
Yeah.
God is love. Progressive Christianity, God is love. Love is attention. Love is awe. Love is humility. Jesus, at the core of his being, was attention. His true self was consciousness, divine, loving consciousness. That's who Jesus was. Jesus taught us to recognize that that's who we are. And that understanding of Christianity is what progressive Christianity is. It's Christianity that's about love, not about dogma, doctrine, not taking the Bible literally, but taking it seriously, because we don't take it literally, because we take it as a story of growth of humanity in love. How did I do? Maybe too long. Yeah.
That's good.
Christianity, progressive Christianity is taking the Bible seriously because we don't take it literally. That's the quickest way to say it. Yeah. Yes, Jim, hi.
So you began at the beginning by talking about a need. You were beginning to form an organization to fill a need that you've been talking about.
Yes.
Now, we recently have been here, had a presentation, video recorded presentation by John Shelby Spohn.
Mhm.
He is part of a group that lists you as a member.
Yes, progressivechristianity.org. Right.
Progressive Spirit.
Progressivechristianity.org.
Well, the website name.
Yeah, the website. That's the name of the organization these days, and the website name. Yeah.
So clearly you're pushing out to form this organization is because you think the other organizations, including perhaps this one, does not meet your needs totally. Could you just kind of?
Oh, well, no, I mean, just to understand here. Yeah,
Well,
progressivechristianity.org is, I'm on its board of advisors. I'm a major contributor to its content on its website and its e-news. And I'm very, devoted and involved in that organization. very much, and I love it, and I think it's doing terrific work. But what we do as progressivechristianity.org is we're a hub for everything progressive Christianity, right? So we highlight the people that are doing stuff in our world, including the stuff I'm doing and the stuff that Brian McLaren is doing, and so on and so on and so on. So our organization is not the headquarters of all the activity, it's the hub and the disseminator of all these activities, right? This is, we're in a new era as far as, organizational structures. We're not, this is not like IBM and CBS and, FBI and KGB back in the 50s where, these giant organizations did everything. Now we've got much more decentralized networks. There's more of a network approach. So progressivechristianity.org's function in that network is to be the hub where you find stuff and then go forth from there to explore particular issues or perspectives. I hope that helps, but yeah, it's we have a specific function in that organization. We're the big tent, but we're not controlling the people who are in the tent, if that makes any sense.
Spong uses that website for his videos. He's got maybe a dozen.
Yes.
Videos on it. I couldn't find anybody else that used it
Yes,
for the videos. Maybe
me,
there are.
Sheila. I want to,
Sorry, what?
hi, this is
Hi,
Sheila.
Sheila, hi.
And I wanted to thank you. My mother thanks you. She's sitting here. She's going to be 99 in September.
Oh, wow.
And she's going to be 100 in September, and we're planning a party, and you just gave her the questions for the party that she's been racking her brains to ask. So we thank you, because she's been sitting here thinking of things to get people to mix and whatever, and you just gave her the questions she wanted.
Cool. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Hey, email me, Sheila, and I'll send you the list.
Thank you. And what's the website for the USC thing?
For which one? For which? Well, which USC thing?
Well, you were talking about the bonfire.
Oh yeah, the campfire thing. Email me. I'll email me, and I'll send you all the links.
Okay. Thank you.
Burklo. I'll put it in the chat here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be able to keep my email too, by the way, which is nice. Burklo.
If you come,
You.
if you come, wear that. If you come and visit our church, will you wear that hat on your chair, on the couch behind you?
When I come to the church, will I wear that hat? Sure, I'd be happy to.
Come and see us.
I love my hats. Yeah. Anybody else with questions, comments, please?
Thank you so much for what you
I really enjoyed this a lot. Yeah. Being with you. Love to you all, and see you in person one of these days at the church. And
One more question.
yes, sir.
Why did you settle in Ohio?
Why did we settle in Hawaii? Because my wife wanted donkeys.
When you
Wanted to have donkeys. She's wanted them for years. They want to move to the country. So we here we are. We're in Ohio. We have 2 acres and we have 2 donkeys.
Okay. I
And,
guess
come and meet them. Come meet our donkeys. Caesar and Cespi. They're a lot of fun to watch.
so.
All right. Peace out, everybody. Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
I want to say goodbye and say goodbye. Jim, thank you again.
Pleasure.